Hello and welcome, my name is Jess, otherwise known by the author moniker Jelim, and I'm the author of the Monster Inside Chronicles. But this time round, I'm actually going to be reading Chapter 8 of The Blood King. If you have not heard the previous chapters, I recommend you jump back to episode 4 of Storytime and start from there, and hopefully you can catch up soon. So, let's move on. Here's Chapter 8. Chapter 8. Kels, seriously, you're freaking us out, said Dimitri as he handed over another spellbook. Will I still be freaking out when I save your life? Asked Kelsey as she scanned through the book and threw it onto the pile behind her. That's not the point here, Dimitri replied. Then shut up, snapped Kelsey. I'm trying to concentrate. You're reading those books at 1,000,000 miles an hour, said Dimitri. It's not humanly possible. I thought the use of the word human and everything associated with it went out the window about 400 years ago, stated Kelsey, glancing up at her brother with the challenge. You're still human, Dimitri retorted. I'm an empathic witch, not a human, Kelsey corrected, looking back down at the spellbook before her. Now shut up before I make you. Dimitri sighed heavily and passed his sister the last of the spellbooks that were stored in their personal library. Well, let me know if you find anything, said Dimitri dejectedly. He turned away and walked from the room, stepping carefully over the scattered books as he went. Kelsey ignored her brother as she flicked through the books. What she was looking for was important, and she needed to find it before the Capricorn Coven made a move she wasn't prepared for. Finishing the last book in her possession, she screamed her anger aloud and flipped the table with her power, scattering the spell books that still sat on it. Kels, sighed Lawrence as he entered the room. Please try to keep your anger under control. It's not here, Lawrence, she snapped. It's not in any of my spell books, nothing whatsoever on the vampiric curse or the binding. Did you really expect there to be something in them? Asked Lawrence as he raised an eyebrow. Our mother did not exactly possess rare spell books. Most of them were useless anyway because they were directed at elemental witches. I know, stated Kelsey, but I hoped for even a mention of the spells. There is nothing in these books. Mum seemed to know so much about the binding that I assumed there'd be something here. Unless she had some secret library somewhere or I actually managed to find her grimoire, I don't know what I'll do. Lawrence observed his sister as she ran her hands through her long red hair. She was stressed and he could see that. He always felt guilty for dragging his sister into fights that were his and Dimitri's. But he also knew that if he didn't call Kelsey, she would be even angrier they hadn't asked for her help, especially if there had been something she was able to do. Lawrence didn't know why she thought that she, a single witch for whom spellbooks were largely useless, could foretell and prevent the power and spells of an entire coven. And the Capricorn Coven no less. She may have been powerful in her own right, but Kelsey was on her own when it came to magic, and Lawrence knew the pressure was on her shoulders. Kelsey, take a break, Lawrence suggested as he guided her to the armchair. Here, Dimitri and I will even make dinner for you. That's not reassuring me, said Kelsey as she sat. If I don't know what they're up to, I can't protect you. Lawrence sighed. At this point in time, we're not in danger, Kels. Please, take a break, focus on something else. Maybe the answer will come to you. Lawrence had always been able to persuade Kelsey to see his point of view, and this evening was no different. Calling one of the many spellbooks that lay on the floor around her to her hand, Kelsey opened it and touched her fingers to the ancient lettering. Fine, said Kelsey, but I expect that dinner soon. I'm starving. Lawrence smiled at his younger sister and left the room as she began to glide her fingers over the writing as if it were braille. Spells and potions for the rare empathic witch, she mumbled with a small sad smile. She remembered when her mother had given it to her for her 8th birthday, the day she was ready to begin her training. It was one of 2 books out of thousands that were exclusively for empathic witches. She turned to the next page, which was as blank as white paper, and touched her hand to it gently. By the laws that bind my existence, I request equilibrium, she said. White light shone from the book and engulfed Kelsey as she closed her eyes, drinking in the power it offered her. She felt no emotions here, nowhere to draw power from but the light from the book. It was the one relief this world could offer her. Feeling nothing was a much-needed break from feeling everything. When she opened her eyes once more, she found herself still in the lounge of Carpathy House. A steaming bowl of soup with fresh bread awaited her. She glanced towards the grandfather clock and confirmed that at least an hour had passed since she had sat down. Kelsey did not request equilibrium often, mainly because she lost so much time by being there, but it was her one and only chance to feel normal, to be disconnected from the emotions that flowed around her every second of every day of her existence. Many empathic witches before her had needed to do the same. Sometimes they needed to start feeling their own emotions rather than everyone else's. Kelsey closed the book lightly and used her power to place it back on its shelf where all the other books had been placed. The mess she had made before in her eagerness to protect her brothers had been cleaned up, the table situated back in its original place. She ate her soup slowly and peacefully as she adjusted to her normal state once more. She could feel Dimitri in his room. Content filled him, but underneath lay his worry, no doubt her fault. She would apologise later, when they had all had a chance to cool down. Her senses shifted to Lawrence, who was in the garage outside. He too had underlying worry, mixed through with guilt. Lawrence was too caring for his own good. Finishing her soup, she took the bowl to the kitchen, the fear or excitement of small woodland animals filling her senses. As she expanded outside of Carpathy House, she always found animalistic emotions more primal. They were always so singular, but changed in a split second. It was like they were hardwired to feel one emotion at once, and that was all. Dwelling less on the problem at hand, Kelsey ascended the stairs to her room. She was done dealing with her complicated life for now. Tomorrow she would begin anew. Hopefully it would give her something to work with other than a meeting between an old vampire and an old witch and the threats of a young witch who couldn't keep her mouth shut. Sighing, she dug herself under her covers and drifted off in the hopes that she would have a peaceful sleep, though she never knew if she would. It depended on who was within reach of her senses. She tended to dream on the basis of their emotions. It was rather annoying, really, as her dreams told her nothing but the problems and pleasures of someone else. She'd tried locking herself away once, away from life so that she could dream her own dreams. It only ended with her weakly stumbling back into a nearby village to gather the emotions of the townsfolk. No, she would never dream of her own desires and worries, nor would she truly feel her own emotions. She was an empathic witch, after all, and she had to survive from everyone else's innermost feelings. "Will I ever love, Mother?" Kelsey had asked her mother innocently as a child. "That is perhaps the only exception," her mother had replied. "You will love deeply and without condition, but through your existence you will love only one. Be sure it is your own, my daughter, for losing a heart is what will break people like us." She had yet to love anyone, guarding herself for fear of losing the only thing that was still fully her own. But she loved her brothers. She would protect them, even if it took that cherished thing that all empathic witches wish for but never find: their souls. Well, that's it for chapter 8 of The Blood King. I hope you got a good insight there into what it's like to be an empathic witch as opposed to an elemental witch. Stay tuned for next time in chapter 9. I will see you then. Stay happy and healthy. Bye.